Listen up. Bible says to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. There's a time to be born and there's a time to die. There's a time to plant, a time to pluck up or to harvest the things that have been planted. There's a time to rend, there's a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Moreover, there's a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time of war and a time of peace. Now, talking about war, the greatest level of spiritual warfare that exists is the war of narratives. It is the war before the war that determines the final result of the war. Bible, for example, says that there was war in heaven, but very few people notice that the war in heaven was preceded by a war of narratives. When the war was taken to the Garden of Eden, listen, the dragon did not arm the serpent with a submachine gun to go after Eve. He simply equipped the serpent with a narrative to deliver to Eve, and the rest is history today. Right now, Nigeria needs to prepare for the global war of narratives that is unfolding. That is, if we don't want a sudden outbreak of hostilities and violence that can tear our nation apart in the days ahead. These are the issues that we must address now or live to regret it forever.
On the 7th of October 2023, exactly 50 years after the beginning of the Yom Kippur War in 1973, the Hamas launched a dastardly offensive against the State of Israel. The attack began in the morning with a barrage of at least 5,000 rockets, launched from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip, before 2,500 Hamas terrorists invaded Israel. It was an act of war and terrible atrocities were committed. The IDF, Israel Defense Forces, has since the day responded with overwhelming rocket missile strikes on northern Gaza, urging all civilians to move to the southern Gaza, but the Hamas has insisted they stay put as human shields for their operational bases. Israel has cut off food, water, electricity and fuel supplies, but Hamas has blocked the roads to southern Gaza as a deterrent. The war of narratives is now in full swing because 44 nations have denounced Hamas and explicitly condemned its conduct as terrorism, with a joint statement by the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Italy, and Germany. The Hamas too has played the religious card, calling all Arab nations to rally round them. The Middle East is pointing fingers at Israel and citing its occupation of Palestine as the root cause of the conflict. The Hezbollah has already launched some airstrikes from Lebanon and are blowing hot that they will open another war front the moment Israel commences a ground assault on Gaza as expected.
Now that the ground assault on the Gaza has started, look, the Israeli-Hamas war is going to take on a new hue altogether. We are going to need the wisdom of God because there are many Nigerians today who have been brainwashed to think that they are Arabs within our country. Look, the Hamas and the Hezbollah, they have allies and they have mental slaves in Nigeria. And some of them are even highly placed in the corridors of power. They are going to begin to betray themselves very soon, because they'll begin to pull strings to push ignorant young boys who are kept ignorant for this purpose. They're going to start pushing them into the streets to go and kill or be killed. Look, perhaps it's even time for us as a nation to address the two parallel lines that we have been trying to unite without success for more than a century. From the spiritual perspective, listen to me. The smaller narrative that is unfolding in the Israeli-Hamas war must be recognized for what it really is. There is a bigger picture behind it. Look, in 1996, there was a thesis written by Samuel Huntington. This American political scientist averred that future wars would not be fought between countries and nations, but that they will be fought between cultures. His position was that the people's cultural and religious identities will be the primary source of conflict in the post-Cold War era. Look, it was obvious to them then that the global influence of Western civilization was beginning to decrease and was going to decrease further. Huntington projected that the Islamic civilization would present itself as the greatest obstacle to their own global vision, saying that the Arab enculturation program was primarily religious, regressive, and totally unsympathetic to Western ideals. Look, the notion of the modern state would always play second fiddle to the Arabic religious identity. They knew that. Look, in a nutshell, the narrative that you see playing out in Gaza is much bigger than we think. Listen, Hamas has bitten to much more than it can chew, and they may have triggered just another major clash of civilizations.